As we get older, it's natural to reflect on the relationships we've built over the years. Our family, friends, neighbors, even the folks we see at the grocery store or the doctor's office. These connections mean the world to us, don't they? But sometimes, without even realizing it, we might fall into habits or behaviors that push people away. Maybe we've noticed that phone calls aren't as frequent, or visits seem shorter, or conversations feel a little strained. And if you've ever wondered why that might be, well, you're not alone. The truth is, certain behaviors, often ones we don't even recognize in ourselves, can make it harder for others to stay close as we age. But here's the good news. Once we're aware of them, we can make small, meaningful changes that help strengthen those bonds instead. So today, let's talk about some of these behaviors, the ones that might unintentionally drive people away, and, more importantly, how we can turn things around. Because no matter our age, it's never too late to nurture the relationships that matter most. Now, the first behavior we should talk about is resisting change. Life moves forward, doesn't it? Technology evolves, traditions shift, and even the way our families communicate can feel different than it did years ago. And sometimes, when we dig our heels in, insisting things should stay exactly as they were, it can leave others feeling like we're not open to their world. For example, maybe your grandkids prefer texting instead of calling, or your adult children suggest new ways to celebrate holidays. It's easy to say, "That's not how we used to do it," and dismiss their ideas. But when we do that too often, people might start hesitating to include us, worried we'll resist or criticize. So how can we adjust? It's all about finding balance. You don't have to give up what you love, but try meeting them halfway. If your granddaughter sends you a text, reply with a short message, even just a heart emoji. If your son suggests a new recipe for Thanksgiving, why not give it a try alongside your traditional dishes? Small gestures like these show you're willing to adapt, and that makes others feel valued. Next, let's talk about complaining frequently. Now, we all have days when we need to vent. Aches and pains, frustrations with the world, or just missing how things used to be. And there's nothing wrong with sharing those feelings now and then. But when every conversation turns into a list of what's wrong, it can leave people feeling drained. Think about it. If every time your daughter calls, the talk revolves around your back pain or how the neighbor's dog won't stop barking, she might start dreading those calls. Not because she doesn't care, but because it feels heavy. That doesn't mean you should pretend everything's perfect. But mixing in positive topics, asking about her day, sharing a funny memory, or talking about a book you enjoyed, keeps the conversation uplifting. A simple shift like starting with, "I've been feeling a bit stiff lately, but hey, I tried that new tea you recommended. It's wonderful," makes all the difference. It acknowledges your struggles without letting them take over. And finally, there's giving unsolicited advice. This one's tricky, because we've lived a lot of life, haven't we? We've learned lessons we're eager to pass on. But when we jump in with, "You should," or "Back in my day," too often, it can come across as dismissive of their choices. Your grandson might not need to hear how to manage his money when he's excited about a new car. Your neighbor might not want gardening tips when she's just proud of her flowers. Instead, try asking questions first. What made you pick that model? Or, how did you get your roses to bloom so well? People appreciate feeling heard before being taught. Now, these are just a few of the behaviors that might be affecting your relationships. But already, I hope you're seeing how small adjustments can make a big difference. And the best part? None of this is about changing who you are. It's about strengthening the connections that bring joy to your life. So let's keep going. because up next, we'll talk about a few more habits that might be pushing people away and how to turn them around with warmth and grace. You know, one of the most beautiful things about getting older is the wealth of experience we carry with us, the stories we've lived, the wisdom we've earned. But sometimes, without meaning to, we let that very wisdom turn into a barrier between us and the people we care about. It's not that they don't value what we have to say, it's just that the way we share it can make all the difference. Take, for example, dominating conversations. Now, we've all been in chats where one person does most of the talking, and after a while, it starts to feel a little one-sided. Maybe you've even caught yourself doing it, launching into long stories without pausing to ask the other person what's new in their life. And while your memories and thoughts are precious, if others feel like they don't have space to share, they might start pulling away without you even realizing why. The fix? It's as simple as turning the spotlight back on them now and then. After sharing a story, try asking, "What do you think?" Or, "How about you? Anything new happening?" That little pause gives them room to step in, and suddenly the conversation becomes a two-way street again. Then there's being overly critical. Now, this one can sneak up on us. Maybe we've always prided ourselves on telling it like it is, or we think offering constructive criticism is helping. But when every visit or call includes comments like, "You're wearing that?" or "You let your kids eat that?" well, it starts to feel less like honesty and more like disapproval. Our loved ones don't need us to police their choices. They need us to be their soft place to land. That doesn't mean biting your tongue every time you disagree, but it does mean asking yourself, "Is this worth mentioning?" before speaking up. Most of the time, a little warmth goes much further than a critique. Instead of, "That color washes you out," try, "You always light up in blue. It's your shade." See the difference? And here's another behavior that can create distance: playing the victim. Life throws us curveballs, especially as we age. Health scares, losses, loneliness. And it's okay to lean on others when we're struggling. But when every conversation becomes about how the world is against us, "No one visits me, everyone's too busy, I'm just a burden," it puts people in an impossible position. They start to feel guilty, even if they're doing their best. And guilt isn't a strong foundation for any relationship. Instead, try framing things in a way that invites connection rather than pity. For example, swap "You never call me" with "Hearing your voice always brightens my day. When's a good time to chat?" It's the same need, expressed in a way that brings people closer instead of pushing them away. Now, I know some of this might feel like walking on eggshells, like we're being asked to tiptoe around our own feelings. But that's not it at all. It's about recognizing that the way we express ourselves shapes how others respond to us. And when we adjust just a little, we often find that our relationships grow stronger, not more distant. So let's keep going, because there are a few more behaviors worth talking about, ones that might be affecting your connections without you even realizing it. And just like the ones we've already covered, the solutions aren't about changing who you are, just about sharing the best parts of yourself in a way that draws people in. As we wrap up our conversation today, I want to touch on a few last behaviors that might be quietly affecting your relationships, and more importantly, how to flip them into opportunities for deeper connection. Because here's what I've learned over the years: the people in our lives aren't just looking for the perfect version of us. They're looking for the present version of us, the one who's willing to grow alongside them. Let's talk about holding on to grudges. Now, if you've lived 6, 7, or 8 decades, chances are you've been hurt a few times along the way. Maybe a friend forgot an important occasion, Or a family member made a careless remark years ago that still stings. And while those feelings are valid, clinging to resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to get sick. It weighs us down far more than it affects them. I'm not saying you have to forget or even fully forgive, but ask yourself, is holding on to this grudge more important than enjoying the time we have left together? Sometimes, simply saying, "That really hurt me back then, but I don't want it to keep us apart now," can lift a weight off both of you. And if the conversation feels too big to have, start small. Reach out first. Send a card. You might be surprised how quickly the ice melts when we stop waiting for the other person to make the first move. Next, there's being overly dependent. Now this is a delicate one, because needing help as we age isn't just normal, it's inevitable. But there's a difference between accepting support and expecting others to fill every empty hour for us. When we lean too heavily on one person, whether it's a child, a friend, or a caregiver, it can leave them feeling drained, even if they'd never say so. The key is balance. If you find yourself calling the same person daily for minor things, try spreading those needs across different relationships. Join a senior center's weekly coffee hour. Strike up a chat with the mail carrier. Small moments of connection add up, and they take the pressure off any one person to be your everything. Remember, independence isn't about doing everything alone. It's about having a full life, not an empty calendar, waiting for someone else to fill it. And finally, let's talk about neglecting your own joy. This might seem like an odd thing to drive people away, but think about it. When was the last time you had something exciting to share? A new hobby, a funny show you're watching, a project you're tinkering with? If every conversation revolves around doctor's appointments or aches and pains, people may start avoiding interactions simply because they don't know how to help. But when you bring yourself to the table, your curiosity, your humor, your interests, you give others permission to connect with the person you are, not just the senior you've become. It doesn't have to be grand. Bake cookies and share them with the grandkids. Try a watercolor class at the library. Forward a silly meme to your niece. Joy is contagious, and people will naturally gravitate toward it. Now, if you're hearing all this and thinking, "But I've been doing some of these things for years," don't worry. Change doesn't happen overnight. Start with one small adjustment this week, maybe letting go of one old grievance or asking a question instead of offering advice in your next conversation. Relationships are like gardens. They don't need grand gestures to thrive, just consistent tending. So here's my challenge to you. Pick one thing we've talked about today, just one, and try a different approach. See how it feels. Notice how people respond. You've spent decades adapting to life's changes. This is just one more, and you're more than capable. And if you found any of this helpful, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What's one relationship you'd like to strengthen? Or maybe you've already made a change that brought someone closer. Share your story. It might inspire someone else. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Remember, growing older doesn't mean growing apart. Not if we keep our hearts open to the people who matter. Here's to your next chapter being your richest yet, surrounded by the love you've nurtured along the way.